huge thank you to Big Design. Big thank you to Brian for having me here for the second time. This is my second time being a speaker at Big Design, and I've been coming to Big Design every year. This is one of my favorite conferences, and this is a great year. I'm so excited, especially excited that we have so many female speakers. So it's going to be a great year. I honestly wasn't expecting this many people, so I'm so happy. Thank you for being here. So I want to start this with a quote. Mark Twain said that there are two kinds of public speakers: those that are nervous and those that are liars. So this is a photo of me last year when I had the awesome opportunity of co-presenting with Beck Judy. And there's a lot that you can see just by looking at this photo. First of all, that it's my first time on stage. We got the big room, that terrifying room downstairs. And it doesn't look like it, but I'm terrified. It's my first time on stage, and I'm incredibly sweaty. This is one of the things that nobody tells you about public speaking is the amount of sweat. So why am I telling you all of this? I want to take a moment to recognize Toastmasters. For those of you that don't know, Toastmasters is an incredible community of people who are interested in improving their communication skills and leadership skills and public speaking. And since I've joined that club, I found out that public speaking is not something that most of us are born with, but rather something that you practice. It's sort of like a muscle that you train and you exercise. So I highly recommend that if you're interested in public speaking, that you reach out to them or reach out to me. I'll let you know everything about it. I love Toastmasters. So a quick introduction to get this started. 3 quick things about me. First, who I am, where I'm from. I grew up in Mexico, and I moved to the US 3 years ago. Until a year ago, I'd never had a Slurpee. The second thing, what I do is I work at 7-Eleven. I'm a UX designer, and I went to school for design at the best school for design in Mexico, according to me. And I was always passionate about design, and I actually never thought I'd end up doing UX because I always had an inclination for editorial design and typography. And what I loved, really quick, 2 things. As I said, I love typography, and something else that you would need to know about me, my favorite thing about the US is s'mores. It's changed my life. So when I was at school, I was fortunate to have some really excellent teachers, some well-known typographers and designers, really great people. And my favorite class was typographic design, in which I learned the level of complexity that goes into designing a font face. Don't worry. It's all good. Hello? But it's okay. Our project for the semester was to design a basic set of characters, a basic font. Oh, this is much better. Thanks. A basic font, and for every letter in the alphabet, we had to sketch, iterate, research, read about that specific letter, compare, and just the level of detail that goes into creating a font face is incredible. So this font, it took me 6 months to design it. Right? I called it Florence, and it's out there if you want to download it. Even if it's a basic font, and I know it has a lot of room for improvement, it taught me a lot of things about the craft of designing a typeface. And to illustrate what I'm talking about, I want to talk about a font called Bell Centennial. Has anybody heard about that font? You're nodding right there. So this was a font designed for AT&T to be used on phone books. And because phone books used really low quality paper that was super absorbent, the issue here was that they wanted to be the issue here was that they wanted to be more cost effective with their use of ink. And because of the paper, the letter forms would distort when they landed on the paper. So he designed the letter forms with these weird shapes and indentation, calculating that when the ink would land on the paper and it would expand, it would end up balancing out and becoming readable. So, and I'm sure you all know where I'm going with this, the level of craft that went into designing this font, so that I'm really passionate about that. So I find it really funny that when I tell people that I'm into typography and lettering, people usually tell me, oh, if you're interested in that, you should totally do it in your free time, you know, as a hobby. So the title of this talk is UX Killing the Craft of Design? And I realized after I had submitted the title of the talk that it sounds a lot like clickbait. So I apologize for that, that wasn't the intention, but actually I don't apologize since so many of you showed up, so yes. So what does the word craft mean? And why is it relevant in 2019? In the digital era. So by definition, craft is to make or produce with care, skill, or ingenuity. So basically what I want to talk about is three things. The first one is a background. I'm going to go over some project that we're working on at 7-Eleven because I'll be using them as examples. Second, I'm going to go over some of the struggles that us as UX designer are facing in 2019. And third, the third part of this talk is principles on how to be a great designer. And so if you make it through the end of this talk awake, I'll be having a giveaway. So again, my name is Lily, I work at 7-Eleven Digital, and we're sponsoring Big Design this year. So make sure you look out for the Slurpee truck tomorrow to get your free Slurpees. Now, very briefly, I'm going to go over some of the projects that we're currently working on, starting with Scan and Pay. This is the project that I've worked the most on. It's a self-checkout application. It's a mobile checkout. It's a feature integrated into the 7-Eleven app, which allows customers to skip the line. And last year, Ben and I talked a bit about the project when it was on pilot mode in some of the stores in the DFW area, but this year we expanded the pilot, and now we're rolling out in cities like New York City and Seattle. So we're learning a lot more from different type of customers in different markets. And this is an overview of the app, well, of that feature. The experience is very straightforward. You scan your items using your phone's camera. You pay digitally with Apple Pay, Google Pay, or credit card, and then you scan your confirmation on your way out. It's paperless, it's cashless, it's very quick, and we were very fortunate to be able to be in charge of designing the end-to-end experience, the UI, the store touch points, the entire journey, the customer journey. Including the hardware pieces, well, we didn't design the hardware, but the hardware experience pieces of the confirmation station. Second project that I want to talk about, oh wow. Second project is 7Now, which is available in 15 cities in the US. 7Now is our delivery service, and this is an e-commerce application that I've also had the chance to work on. So get your 7-Eleven products delivered in under 30 minutes, that's the value proposition. And in this case, this is a much more complex project for all the different pieces that are involved, like operations, fulfillment, store app, driver experience, etc. Last project that I want to talk about is 7-Eleven Fuel Loyalty that's rolling out this year that will allow customers to potentially enable a pump through their phones, pay using Apple Pay, Google Pay, or credit card, and then earn points or rewards for their fuel purchases. So this is my team, my people, some of them are here. We're a team of almost 30 people now. Between us we have interaction designers, visual designers, UX researchers, and managers, and one of the biggest things for me is the sense of community and belonging that we have in this team. And I can honestly say that this right here is the reason I love my job. And why am I telling you all this? Because we're currently hiring. So if you're interested in working in these projects and being part of this community, reach out to us, because we're looking for the best talent out there. So to kick off this talk, I'm gonna go over the 7 struggles, conveniently 7, you notice? 7 struggles of a UX designer in 2019, and why the craft of design has been overlooked in 2019. And these are not issues that we're facing only at 7-Eleven, but as pervasive issues in the UX discipline. So I have a list of 7, but I'm going to go over each one of them. The first one, and I'm sure you all can relate to this, is the amount of available tools out there and the speed at which they change. So we have new updates and enhancements and integration, and it makes it near impossible to identify which one is the best. So additionally, because some of them have a very steep learning curve, by the time we've learned it and mastered it, there's already a better one out there. And for example, these are just prototyping tools, but a great example I also have is version control, because as you might expect, being a part of such a big team can be a lot of fun, but collaborating effectively can be very challenging at times. So there was a time where we were exploring tools for version control and team collaboration, and it took us a while to decide which one was the best one for us. So once we landed on the perfect tool, we trained the team, we came up with best practices, how to use it, we rolled it out, we bought the licenses, and then Sketch for Teams appeared, which, well, so now we're, whatever. So, I don't know what we're gonna do. So this is just version control, but as you all know, the practice of UX includes all kinds of activities, from sketching and collaborating, prototyping, handing off, prototyping, and I could go on. These are our work tools, our hammer and chisel, if you will. And additionally, in 2019, a UX designer has so many different hats to wear, so many different responsibilities. So to prototype, test, research, sketch, iterate, strategize. And so by definition, it's almost like the role of a UX designer is almost always the role of a generalist, not truly a specialized role. So what does that do to the concept of mastery? As I was looking on the internet for an image to illustrate this concept, I came across this: master the pen tool in 30 minutes. And this might seem like a very technical or a tactical thing related to UI or typography or shapes in general, but still, master the pen tool in 30 minutes. The perception that you can become a master at anything in 30 minutes, it's a problem. So this is not to say that that tutorial is not good. For all I know, it might be great at explaining in depth a lot of the technicalities that go into creating shapes, but one of the most complex applications of the pen tool is for, as some of you know, vectorizing typography, which requires an incredible level of precision and knowledge and theory and practice. And again, the pretension of assuming that you can master it in 30 minutes, it's really upsetting, because if you can become a master in 30 minutes, what does that do Matthew Carter, the designer of Bell Centennial? A super master, a super master, or a god? A little perspective, I think, is needed. So who is a master, and how do you earn that level of mastery? In general, the level of investment that we're willing to give in learning something has become so reduced because we all want to spend the least amount of time learning and the more time doing. And I've noticed there is an obsession with time in today's society. If you notice, all of our projects at 7-Eleven are about saving time. Skip the line. Why are you waiting in line? You've got better things to do. Get your items delivered. Don't waste your time driving to the store. Pay faster. Get your snacks delivered. But I wonder if we're doing something valuable with that time we're saving. Or is it a societal issue of impatience and restlessness because we're not used to waiting for anything. Services like Google and Amazon, even Tinder, have given us that perception that we can have anything right now. You want a boyfriend right now? You can have it. And we have become an impatient society. Now, Agile's main objective is to maximize efficiency and productivity, right? So in today's world, if you're not agile, it's like saying you're not cool. You need to be agile, fail fast, you know? And most of you might be familiar with the UX counterpart, Lean UX. It's a great way of blending design into the agile process to get things out the door ASAP. Test quick and fail fast, because when you want to spend the least amount of resources into creating a digital product, we've become lean. So what happens when a designer is constantly designing in a rush to meet a deadline to quickly test? What happens is that we become sloppy. And because we become so focused on being productive, fast, and lean, we end up neglecting our craft. And you'll know that UX sits in the middle between tech, business, and design. And because we have wanted to have a seat at that table and to have a say in the product strategy, we've learned how to be business focused. We know what the business cares about. They care about metrics and sales and money, about conversion. And now we've switched our focus to be more business-oriented, even as designers. So the famous MVP, the minimum viable product. Think about it. The MVP does not account for quality. MVP does not ensure the delight necessary to get people to truly love a product. And I just want to clarify that I respect and I admire the Agile process. I've seen the benefits of working as part of a Scrum team. The problem, I think, is when we as designers, as gatekeepers for quality and delight and understanding and ease of use, when we become so focused on what we think the bigger picture is. And I'm sure you've all heard someone say this. Maybe you've even said it yourself, because I know I have. I don't care if it looks good. I care if it works, if it serves its function, if it solves the problem. And it doesn't need to be pretty. Well, I agree, it doesn't need to be pretty. At 7-Eleven, we have so many wonderful examples of store associates and franchisees that do not rely on our marketing team to sell their products. So take a moment to see this wonderful butterfly-shaped ad. One of my teammates shared this on Slack the other day, and while we were joking around, someone said, well, you know, I bet it drove sales. You know what, we should A/B test this with current store signage to see how is this performing. We could determine some success metrics, and it kind of makes you think for a second, is this good design? Because by many conventional UX standards, it would. I mean, does it communicate the message appropriately? Does it stand out? Is it clear and understandable? Did it drive sales? Again, if we say UX is about solving problems strategically, maybe this is indeed solving a problem of awareness. Again, is this good design? So let's get deep here for a second. What is good design? What defines good? So lucky for us, design pioneers already defined that. And you all might be familiar with Dieter Rams, who is considered one of the best designers of all times. He came up with the 10 principles for good design, in which he states all the qualities and characteristics that make good design. And I want to focus on two of them. Number 7 and number 8. Good design is thorough down to the last detail. And good design is aesthetic. Does anybody know who this man is? This is Robert Palladino. What happened here? This is Steve Jobs' calligraphy teacher. It was because of Palladino and the impression he made on Steve that Steve Jobs was able to appreciate the value of typography, and therefore is the reason that the first Mac had different fonts to choose from. And there's something unique about the craft of calligraphy is that it takes years to master. It takes an incredible amount of detail and precision and a lot of dedication, and Steve Jobs knew this. And back to UX, you might be thinking, well, UX is not an art, it's not about artistic expression or artistic intent, but let's go back to the word craft. What craft translates to is care. In every profession, to be good at something, you need to care, and you need to care a whole lot. You need to really put your heart into it to truly excel. Because, for example, think about it, wouldn't you want your surgeon to be thorough to the last detail? So let's take a moment to reflect about it. As designers, it is our responsibility to take care of our craft and always look out for the quality of our outcomes. Let's make our MVPs a whole lot more than the minimum viable product. Let's make it a more meaningful experience for our customers. One of the tips or things I do is that I always think when I'm about to show a design or whatever to someone, if I were to show this mock-up or to Dieter Rams, and I had an hour, a couple hours to make it better, how could I improve this? Because there's always room for improvement. So another big societal problem, as you all might know, is the lack of focus. It is said that humans have an attention span of 8 seconds. That is less than the attention span of a goldfish. And this is all a symptom, again, with the obsession with time and instant gratification and the experience economy that has made us think that anything we want is a click away or a YouTube video away. Cal Newport has this book that's called Deep Work, and he talks about how us as a society, we've lost the ability to focus deeply and immerse ourselves in a complex task. And that focus is something that can be achieved only through practice. So if we know that, that could become our competitive advantage. If we're able to master the ability to focus, because we know that the best outcomes are the results of long periods of uninterrupted focus work. So I highly recommend this book, Deep Work by Cal Newport. And these are some of the tips if you don't have time to read it. One of them is to regularly practice uninterrupted sessions of focused work. Second, to avoid interruptions and distance yourself, oh my God, to distance yourself from distractions like email or social media, which is hurting our ability to achieve the true focus. Third, practice mind training through deep meditation. And of course, you need to read the book to understand what this is all about, but it's basically training your brain to be able to solve complex problems in your spare time. And the fourth one, create habits. For example, quitting work at the same time every day. I really recommend you read this book. It's really good. Another popular issue or term is the democratization, because it always has a very positive connotation. Knowledge for all and a voice for everyone. And if you remember Disney's Ratatouille, anyone can cook. And it seems like in today's world, anyone can design. And this is not necessarily a bad thing, because what it means is the awakening of design in organizations. Businesses realizing the impact that design has and wanting to learn and implement design methods. And design thinking is hot right now. Organizations are starting to adopt and encourage the spread of design thinking because they know the power of collaboration and creative confidence in teams. So 2019 in general is a great time to be a designer. We all want to achieve the best outcomes. We want to bring teams together because we know that a great idea can come from anyone. But one downside for this is when a designer spends most of their time sharing, facilitating, teaching, selling the value of UX, because when we do that, we're not practicing our craft. Because, as design as any other skill needs to be practiced. It's not like riding a bike where you can jump right on it. If you stop designing, your skills deteriorate. So let's ask ourselves, what percentage of my work is actual relevant practice of design? And what should a healthy balance be? And additionally, the concept that everyone is a designer and that mastery is a few YouTube videos away, or a 2-day course away, or a short UX bootcamp away, is diminishing the role of a true UX professional. And this is not only true for design, but for many other professions. The internet has become a wonderful tool to spread knowledge and information, but what has it done to true expertise? Not that long ago, if you wanted to become a designer, these were your sources. You either had to go to school, or you had to read a whole lot and study, practice, surround yourself with people that actually knew. Now it's very common for people to gain their knowledge from Medium articles or Behance. We call it the dribblization of design. And again, I'm not saying that there isn't good information out there, because there is. It's the expectation that information snacking on short articles or videos is as good as, for example, having gone to school for design. And I have a story about shortcuts and democratization, so look at this photo. It was taken by Nirmal Purja, who's a professional mountain climber who took this photo while climbing down the Everest. And he tells a story how he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Turns out, climbing the Everest has been recently turned into a business, believe it or not. And anyone with barely any knowledge or experience can book a tour now to climb the Everest. And the result of this is that untrained people are dying. Just since May, 10 people have died. Tourists that, of course, weren't prepared for this. So professional climbers say that using this kind of aid, like oxygen tanks and supporting equipment, is cheating. Professional climbers say that it's cheating, because even the slightest failure can be fatal. So how is it that we've lost all respect for mountain climbing, all the training and the experience that goes into it? And honestly, as I was reading the story, I really went down the rabbit hole, reading and watching videos about the Everest and the stories about campers, and I felt that urge, I really would want to climb the Everest. And I surprised myself, like, I can barely do 30 minutes of cardio. After seeing a few videos, I felt encouraged to climb the Everest. Anyway, so back to UX and the democratization of design and taking shortcuts. We've all heard the stories about the prodigies, the school dropouts, the self-taught, and the entrepreneurs who excel even more than people with master's degrees. We've all heard those stories. The thing we don't realize is how rare that is. And so what I'm saying here is, whether you went to school or not for design, just know that there is no shortcut, because knowledge, mastery, and expertise come from both formal education, perseverance, and countless hours of relevant practice. And in summary, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and dedication. So, the imposter syndrome is a big issue. One of the most pervasive and paralyzing symptoms of today's creatives. It's that feeling of, I suck. I am not good enough. I'm not good at this. I recommend you check out Pablo Stanley's illustrations on imposter syndrome. They're so good. Does anybody relate to this? It's this inner self-doubt that at times can be the biggest obstacle for creativity. And 2 years ago, Jared Spool here at Big Design presented this slide on his keynote. the growth stages of understanding. And this is the evolution of one's competence and how our self-awareness evolves. Starting with the unconscious incompetence, meaning when you suck at something and you don't know you suck. Then to, oh, I really suck at this. But at least at that point you're conscious about it. After this stage comes the conscious competence, when you're good and you know you're good, and finally to the unconscious competence, when you're good at something intuitively. And there's something interesting about this evolution, which is the comfort level and ego. See, in these two phases, you feel comfortable. Because either you don't know what you don't know, therefore you're arrogantly and ignorantly comfortable, or you know you're good at something, and again, it's a very arrogant and comfortable zone. And this is where the imposter syndrome lives. It's actually in between the conscious incompetence, wanting to move away from that incompetence. It's that level of self-awareness that keeps you uncomfortable and keeps you wanting to try harder. And this is also related in a way to the very popular Dunning-Kruger effect. And this is defined as a cognitive bias in which people mistakenly assess their cognitive ability as greater than it actually is. And it's interesting that these two are not independent factors, but they're correlated, meaning because you are incompetent, that makes you very confident. Think about it this way. Ignorant people don't know they're ignorant. Therefore, their ego is so big. So I'm wondering, is imposter syndrome really that bad? I'm thinking we all need to stop it with this whole imposter syndrome thing for 3 reasons. First, because experts don't act like experts. Experts are self-critical and analytical, and I'll talk about it in a second. Second, there are actual imposters out there. There are people who have read the articles and seen the videos and are ready to go. And we need to look out for them. And the third one is that there is a healthy level of doubting yourself, because it's that doubt and that self-awareness that will keep you trying harder, trying to become better than you are. So what I'm saying is, don't ever trust your ego, because a designer's ego and a creative's ego is a designer's biggest enemy. Because it keeps you mediocre, it keeps you incompetent, and it keeps you from trying harder. So I want to encourage you to fight your ego, because that's what's holding us back. Tom Nichols has this book called The Death of Expertise, in which he explains how us as a society have become so arrogant that we feel comfortable challenging expert advice. Never have people have access to so much knowledge and yet have been so resistant to learn anything. And he says that we've become an increasingly narcissistic culture of arrogance. He explains the difference between an imposter and a true expert. And one of the biggest things is the level of self-awareness and self-confidence. Because imposters are arrogant, they own superficial knowledge, they're opinionated, and they're quick to jump to conclusions. On the other hand, actual experts, because they have so much deep knowledge on the subject, they don't feel very comfortable jumping to a conclusion. They are self-aware, they have deep knowledge, they're more reserved, and they're critical and analytical. And this is not a rule, but in general it talks about the level of competence of a true expert. There's this term, metacognition, in which is defined as the ability to know when you're not good at something by stepping back, looking at what you're doing, and then realizing you're doing it wrong. And he gives the example of good singers and bad singers, and how bad singers don't know they're bad. So think about the experts you know. And why is it that you regard them as experts? how did they become experts? How did they learn, and how did they become, again, experts? We have a great quote from Marshall Erithman. He's an illustrator and a graphic artist who has this quote: "It's my ego that gets me up in the morning, but my ego cannot paint." There's a difference between the words humility and humiliation, and interestingly enough, they both come from the same root word, humus, the earth, bringing you back to earth, keeping you grounded. So why is it that we take these two words and we attribute such polarizing meanings? Why are we so scared of being humiliated? Why does it affect us so deeply? And then why is it important to be a good designer? Is it really bad to let incompetent people design? Is it really that bad to let mediocrity overcome design? The short answer is yes, it's very bad, because us, as UX designers, we are responsible for crafting the next generation of products and applications for the healthcare industry, for retail, for finance, we're responsible for making sure we're making great products for our customers. We have that responsibility. So how does one actively fight their ego? It is very common for us designers to become very attached to our work, that we don't take feedback very well. So give it a try and actively try looking for mistakes in your work. Ask your colleagues to point out what you can improve and actually listen to it. Be humble and vulnerable enough to accept that your work can always be improved, because a good designer listens and a good designer is humble. At 7-Eleven, we have what are called the leadership principles, and one of which is to do the right thing. And we know as designers that starts with us having the right purpose in mind. And I personally love the leadership principles, because the first one is be customer obsessed. And what could be more human-centered than being customer obsessed? And finally, I just want to end up this saying that if you believe that you don't have that voice or that power to make decisions happen in your organization, think again, because once you raise your voice, you'll be surprised by how loud it is. Mike Monteiro talks about it in his book. I just showed it on the previous slide. Whatever. So we have that responsibility. So again, this is a list of the struggles that we're facing as UX designers in today's world, and how we have overlooked and neglected our craft, and in combination, it has a very pessimist note, doesn't it? We've lost our focus, we're obsessed with time, we don't trust experts, and we're insecure, but we have big egos, and it all sounds really, really, really bad. And I want to leave you all with an encouragement message, which is that I believe that the qualities that make a great designer come from the inside. It's your personality that makes you a great designer. And I'm going to share with you a project that I've been working on, which intent is to inspire designers to become their better self, to push through adversity, and to remind themselves every day of what's important. It's called the Daily UX Reminders, and the inspiration comes from 3 places. The first one is this concept that I love from bike racing. A top cap is a little metal disc that you screw into your bike between the handlebars, and each one has a short but very powerful message, so that when you're feeling tired or defeated or feeling weak, when you're ready to give up, you look at it and it inspires you to keep going. A similar concept in Alcoholics Anonymous, that when reaching a milestone, they earn a symbolic piece of metal to keep them accountable and remind them to stay strong, to remind them of what's important. And the third inspiration, the third of my references, are tattoos. Because for centuries, people have had the need to write on their skin what's important and what's meaningful to them. To watch it every day and remind themselves of what's important. So those things you don't want to forget. So these are the daily UX reminders. It's 6 principles on how to be your best self and to inspire you to become better and greater than you are already. The first one is about creative confidence. It says, I'm not sure you can see it with this light, but I am not an imposter. I am self-aware. Second, strive to always keep learning. Listen more than you speak. Learn. Because we know that by listening to more than we speak, we're actually obtaining information that we wouldn't be able if we just are out there. The third one is to be open to feedback. Listen to feedback and actually listen to it, because feedback enables growth. Then to practice deep work. Commit to your craft and just work hard. And go read the book by Cal Newport. 5 is to choose quality. To remind ourselves that good enough is not enough. To never settle. And the 6th one is to watch your ego. Because we know our ego is our biggest enemy. A reminder that my ego can't design. Stay humble. So I have these 6 medals, and there's something very powerful about gifting a medal to a friend designer, because as an encouragement, as a way of reminding them of what's important. And I made these into stickers actually, and I forgot them. So I'll be leaving them on tables everywhere. But that's basically my proposal. I hope you all have enjoyed this talk, and let me know if you all have any questions. Thank you very much. And just the last piece, I want to recognize some of the people that have encouraged me and that I've asked for feedback about this topic, and that have helped me along coming up with the topic of this talk. Does anybody have any questions, or you want to? If not, I'm around, and I'm very happy to be here.